Farmers, this is from TCD. Farmers warning food aisles will be soon empty because of crushing conditions. Talking about exactly what you said. They couldn't plant. The rain has not stopped. So most farmers, at least this is in the UK, so it's a UK-based story, were unable to get potatoes, carrots, and wheat into the ground. So, and then you look at Ukraine and they're coming in around maybe 6 to 7. I've seen as high as 10% over their total normal land area being planted. But then, that's way west, way west. So I look into that going, all right, near Lviv and these things, like how do you even have a functional system to be able to plant, harvest, and process crops and send it outbound when you're in the middle of a war like that?
Today, but we're finishing out strong with one of our favorites, David Devine from Adapt 2030. Make sure you get on over to his YouTube channels. And this one, when I get through the latest earth changes that are happening, farmers out in Europe are saying be prepared for empty shelves upcoming here. You got more banks closing. How about bird flu? They're saying the FDA is saying bird flu is in 1 in 5 milk containers, I think, now. So that's an interesting subject. We'll get David to weigh in on all of that. Appreciate David joining us. And David, where do you want to start today? I think you want to discuss flooding first. Of course, a lot of flooding happening worldwide, not just here in the United States. As a matter of fact, there was a few areas, I think it was earlier in May, where it's about a half hour from me, Oakdale, PA, Wheeling, West Virginia, going underwater. Some very compelling footage there. It wasn't too bad here where I was at, but it's been happening throughout the Ohio Valley area. Take it away, David.
Yeah, man. And let me start with these floods. I just got back from Europe and we were on the road for about 4 months. I was mainly research and had to get back for Lunar New Year in Taiwan. And I want to talk about a couple things I saw. First, the currency devaluation in 3 countries that I visited. So if I only went to 5 countries total and 3 of them were having difficulty with their currency, that's pretty high odds just out of random happenstance. So Croatia, we went there previously. It was our 3rd time to go to Croatia. And then this time, they'd moved away from their native kuna into exclusively using euros as the money. And prices doubled for almost everything. So that was one. All right, everything goes up 100% in your life. That's difficult to, people who are definitely angry. And then they, only allowed you in those last 2 weeks to go up to Zagreb and change in the national bank. All smaller regional banks stopped allowing you to exchange the kuna, which you had, into the euro. So you had to spend the money and time to go all the way to Zagreb. So that was a way that they and further stole money from the people. Because if you had a few $100s, you're not going to spend the time and money to spend a few $100s in bus tickets and time and hotel and food and to go up to change your money and come back. So I'm wondering how many billions were siphoned off just by people who had small amounts that didn't want to spend, that. And then secondly, we went to Japan because I was already in Taiwan, and they had these crazy $100 flights up there because the cherry blossom season was delayed by 2 to 3 weeks. So all the hotels and everything that thought were going to be booked for cherry blossom, everybody just started canceling because there were no cherry blossoms, and it was super cold winter, and the spring was really cold, and it was so suddenly they got all these like empty hotels. So they $100 flight to get up to Japan from Taiwan. So we go up there, and it used to be 100, about 100 for 100 Japanese yen to $1. But this time it was 152. So their currency had devalued 50%.
We don't have to worry about not having food to last. We have my Patriot supply. And right now, you can save $200 on a 3-month food kit with Adapt 2030. Adapt and stay prepared.
And again, they internalized it. It just was a real sad, macabre kind of place where in Europe it was more of a little bit anger spilling over, people angry. And then we went to Hungary, and the food inflation since the beginning of the year was 40%, which is like running about 10% a month. And then we were there during the super freeze, It went from summer to winter in one day, so we had to get all our clothes out. We'd sent a bunch of stuff back, so we didn't even have winter clothes. We ended up buying some clothes because it got so cold. And they were expecting another 10% increase in, let's say, this next month or 6 weeks. The prices are increasing so fast that every restaurant, 100% of the restaurants I went into had put stickers on the menus to change the prices because they couldn't reprint fast enough and they knew the prices were going to go up again. So this is the kind of thing I experienced firsthand. And, as it comes here to America, I would encourage you to get ready in any way, shape, or form you can, because it is going to be horrific when you see it here, for sure.
Integrate some of the economics here. Talk to us about some of the early signs here of hyperinflation. I know you did a video on that a few weeks ago, and when I did a TikTok video, that farmer headline talking about the prices rising there, and early indication that in the not so distant future the shelves are going to be empty. I actually had farmers coming onto that page saying like, "Hey, this is not fear mongering. Like, this actually is happening."
And what is that exactly?
Oh, with the shelves being empty, like they're not able to lay in as much as they wanted to lay into, largely due to they mentioned flooding.
Yeah, that's a thing. The atmosphere is going to definitely be bending and more electrified as we come through October of this year. So those of you following our orbits of all the planets, everything is in the one quadrant of the solar system, and the Earth is in a completely different. So every single planet is in basically one like spot in the sky, for a better term, and the Earth sits out here by itself. Usually there's a balance of electromagnetism. Like, Jupiter's off to the left, you might get Saturn to the right, you got a couple things over there straight ahead, you got a couple behind you, Venus, maybe Mercury's kicking behind. So there's normally would be a balance of electromagnetism, right? But this time, all the gas giants are in one quadrant of the solar system, forming a near perfect square. And we just rolled through the backside of the sun. We were outside the sun by ourselves, behind the sun. And this, what you consider flood window that had just opened with all these massive floods, was as our Earth was passing around during that tug. So the earthquake window's open now just because of Jupiter and Saturn coming on the 16th of the month, just like a super low-hanging fruit. When Jupiter, the Sun, and the Earth align, we usually get 7.0 earthquakes. Well, that's coming up on about the 16th. This time we also have Saturn off at a quadrant also pulling and tugging on us. So we have, and then Mercury's really close in that same direction that, we're getting tugged from different directions, all from the same direction, all from the gravitational bodies. Mercury is just pure iron core. So it's interesting how when Mercury comes in front of the sun, it can nullify sunspots also. And the Earth seems like when it passes in front of sunspots, sunspot cluster groups, also they seem to dissipate. So whatever it is there with the mechanisms between our Earth with its core and Mercury being basically solid metal, there's something to do with the sun there that nullifies that charge, as would be expected. You're putting a different magnetic field directly in front of something. Expect larger floods to be coming for the next, say, month. They're going to let off, but as soon as we start swinging around within these next 6 months, I would give it a 3-month break in the summer. But as soon as we start getting into late summer, early fall, once we really start grabbing in and getting grabbed by that electromagnetic field, we haven't seen this since 79 AD, so it's kind of hard to conjecture exactly what's going to happen. But the flood shall increase. For now, we got another, say, 3 weeks of massive floods across the planet. And what's crazy is they're trying to say it's cloud seeding and geoengineering that are causing the floods across the planet. But wait a second, Eric, you and I were told that just, last year that geoengineering talk was conspiracy theory, and we were all nutballs for even bringing it up. So now they're using that as the excuse to explain away the record floods. So you tell me, I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I'm right there with you, too. It's very interesting how they're trying to change the narrative on that. What do you make of some of the storms that have happened over the last few days, ripping through Texas, Missouri, Oklahoma? I think one town, Sulphur, Oklahoma, is completely leveled. I see the devastation after the fact there. And it seems like I think there's another round of storms coming, too, as well. And I just keep reminding folks, be prepared for the worst here, because it's only going to escalate. I think they're now talking about hurricane season along the Atlantic going to be the worst in I don't know how many years. I mean, just be prepared for some some storms that perhaps we've never seen before in times past in terms of magnitude. But what's your thoughts there? And again, for us all, it's kind of like Russian roulette a little bit, in a certain sense. Like when it comes and hits our neck of the woods, unless we have some massive backup plan at some other place that you're going to that's already self-sufficient, we're kind of all at God's mercy here a little bit. And how's your area doing too, by the way, down in Tennessee?
Not bad, but we're expected to get that sort of tailing of the front that just ripped through yesterday. Now, that one tornado you referenced there, it also had other tornadoes spawning out of the tornado, which they thought was incredibly rare. They had a frontal boundary coming through with multiple tornadoes in front of the main tornado. So the only way I can possibly explain that is electric front. What I'm talking about, the electromagnetism and the changes in our atmosphere because of our Earth now being a conduit out to this new second magnetic field forming in the outer solar system. A lot of people say, well, you can't measure the magnetic field inside the solar system. But what's causing these changes so rapidly that were forecast because of these planets in their squares that are going to interloop with themselves? Now, for me, it would not be outside the realm of possibility here in the next couple of months that the planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune start to glow brighter. Because I just did a video 2 days ago about Neptune's clouds disappearing. And they came clean. This is on space.com. You can go check it out there. NASA came clean and said, yes, the effect of those clouds disappearing is directly related to the sun. So if you're telling me something way, 15 times further out than we are from the sun is affected, its clouds disappeared. And about, 3 years ago, its atmosphere in the northern hemisphere reversed. Like you're telling me, and then there's no effect on our planet from the same electrical phenomenon that's sweeping through the solar system showing changes, and then we're supposed to sit here and believe that has zero effect on our planet. That's the most absurd thing you can possibly... The brainwashing that it took to accomplish such a feat that humans are now applauding and saying, yes, please block the sun out from our planet. I look at this and go, this is insanity. The narrative that they built in have people cheering that they want to block the sunlight out. I just, non-human entity controls this planet.
I agree there, 1,000% on that. That Catholic prophecy indicates that the storms changes are going to be so bad that you'll have massive sinkholes which will open up that will just swallow up whole cities, in countries even. Countries was mentioned in one approved Catholic prophecy. But with some of the electromagnetic changes or whatever, I know during the 3 days of darkness alone, it's foretold that, like, if you're not right with God, we'll just put it like that, it's going to be so frightful. The thunders alone are going to cause you to perish. And there's other prophecies that kind of correlate with that, even before the 3 days of darkness, where it says the thunders will be so bad it'll level cities. And I don't know. I've been through some pretty nasty storms where, you get startled. Like, if it comes out of nowhere and you get that one that just sort of rumbles the ground, 3 to 5 seconds, like that will really, like, you'll get the hair stand up on the back of your head. I just can't imagine like whole cities just leveled as a result of these storms that we've not quite seen before. But
well, let me interject. And that would be interplanetary lightning that would scar something and leave a scar like the Grand Canyon or the Adriatic Sea. When you're getting to that type of what you just described, there's nothing in our realm that can create that type of shock wave with the parameter. Even if you had 100. I'll be generous and say 100 miles up to the ionosphere. All right, if you could, usually our weather takes place in the first 30,000 feet or so, right? So I'll even be generous and say 10 miles, 12 miles. I'll give you 36,000, 12, 15 miles up. Okay. But even with that, the largest of storms that we see, they can't vibrate concrete or get in such a resonance that it pulverizes and powderizes concrete. You would literally need a lightning bolt from space, interplanetary lightning. Well, it would be probably a discharge from our planet elsewhere off to another body. So you got to think about that. Tendrils kind of coming out of our planet to discharge, reaching out to something else. Now, will it reach there? Because a lot of times you see lightning, it goes out of the cloud, it doesn't strike the ground. But the same phenomenon, like you would have to have something thousands and thousands of orders of the strongest storms we've ever seen on the planet to create that effect you're talking about. And 3 days of darkness, let me add one point in. If it's 3 days of darkness on your side and you're in the dark part, it's going to get down to what? 20 degrees below zero or something by the time the Earth starts spinning again? Are you ready for that?
I don't think anyone, I don't think any of us are really ready for some of the details and that every devil being let loose. Yeah, I don't think I'm ready for that at this point, but we got to be ready. We should be ready. What did you make? And I'm glad that I saw on your YouTube that you were talking about this too as well. April the 8th fallout here. Outside of it being an occult ritual, I just noticed that ever since then, people are more on edge. It seems like we're being set up for a revolution. But I mean, outside of CERN, reopening, you had this crazy document coming out of the Vatican, which was completely heretical. There's actually a lot happening on the 8th there that a lot of people missed. But what was sort of your takeaway post eclipse?
Well, Ryder Lee and myself, from Raised by Giants, we did this before the eclipse is coming, saying, you know what? It's another one of those things. Oh, the 5G is going to activate and everybody's brain's going to explode and there'll be a bunch of zombies, and it didn't happen. And we're like, nothing's going to happen here. They're using the fear in their occult ritual, because if they can get 1 billion people vibrating at a lower frequency, they can open the feeding trough. And I guarantee that those emotions were used. Now, we don't know how they were used, but we know for sure they were being used in their ritual. Like those emotions were being harvested, amplified, and used for something on the other side of the veil. Now, when you think about vibrational frequency, if you're in love and harmony and happiness, nothing can really feed on that, because that's the purest emotion getting back toward creation itself, that high frequency. But when you're down in what you're talking about, those more demonic realms and that darker, heavier, that fear, the loathing, the unknown, you get into that apathy and just internalized mourning and this kind of thing. Once you get people in that state of mind, A, you can control them much easier, but B, something was feeding off of that. And we were like, nothing really big is going to happen in terms of like physical effects outside. Everything that was being done as a set of circumstances to accomplish the ritual. And they let everybody run with that from 6 ways from Sunday about what was going to happen. Anything from everything was going to happen, and nothing did. And of course, the overseers on the algorithms and the fact checkers and all these things allowed every single thing to move forward of any kind of possible scenario, to build as much fear around that event as possible, and then nothing happened. And that's what me and Ryder were talking about. They're just scaring everybody. Don't buy into the fear. And you influencers out there, stop peddling the fear during that time. And that was what it was all about. And of course, look what happened. The world didn't end. The people didn't get like zombies because they were under the shadow and all these things. And CERN didn't create black holes and millions of sinkholes across Europe, and all these things did not happen.
I always put out like warnings saying, okay, this is what people are saying, and like you discern kind of yourself, just so that everyone knows what people are saying. So, although I did say I thought that with CERN reactivating, I did say that we would see like more lunacy on the other side. Certainly, I think that's really transpired. Yeah, I mean, they definitely want a summer of chaos here. They want riots in the street and, states versus the feds, all that stuff. I think it's going to be a pretty crazy summer. What do you make on the economic side here? Let's break down some of the latest bank closings. You've got Republic Bank going down. Friday, they announced the bank has been seized. I think Fulton Bank, too. There's a sale on them. 32 branches, by the way, for Republic Bank, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, up there in the Northeast. Or bank consolidations. Where are we at with that? And again, I just listen. I have like a more local bank myself. I don't use like a big bank, but I'm smart enough to know that I don't keep too much in there per se. Not that I would have too much in there anyways, but keep enough in there to pay some bills type of thing. If I start getting into some other tangible assets. But what's some of the latest you're seeing with the banking crisis? You think this will pick up here spring moving into the summer? Because it kind of went on the back burner there for a good, about half a year or so since the whole Silicon Valley thing. Where are we at with that?
I don't know, man. You're called summer chaos. Can you imagine a financial collapse occurring at the same time of all the racial strife and all of everything else happening, the food shortages? Because as you were talking here, somebody sent me an article about the British farmers over in the UK facing dire food shortages, prices to skyrocket. Experts predict it's just the beginning. Farmers, this is from TCD, farmers warning food aisles will be soon empty because of crushing conditions. Talking about exactly what you said. They couldn't plant. The rain has not stopped. So most farmers, at least this is in the UK, so it's a UK-based story, were unable to get potatoes, carrots, and wheat into the ground So, and then you look at Ukraine and they're coming in around maybe 6 to 7. I've seen as high as 10% of their total normal land area being planted. But then, that's way west, way west. So I look at that going, all right, near Lviv and these things, like how do you even have a functional system to be able to plant, harvest, and process crops and send it outbound when you're in the middle of a war like that? So you're looking at massive losses across a lot of places. So the one takeaway that I got from Europe also I'll share with everybody here. So you're looking at all these food shortages. This is exactly like what you see pre-war. There's a lot of the American empire is collapsing. All the enemies are nipping at the heels. They don't want dollars so much outside the United States any longer. They prefer euros or any other thing, because when we had a chance to trade in yen, dollars and euros, they always said, no, we don't want the dollars, we'll take the yen or the euros. And that was in many, many, many money change places, right? So then that clued me in a little bit. But one thing I learned going through all those dusty museums and naval museums and military history museums, in addition to the most magnificent, beautiful, just opulent history museums and this sort of castle museums and thing across in Hungary, one thing I noticed across all epochs of time in history is the army was everywhere, even the remotest places, even way back then. There's nowhere to run or hide from when war starts. I mean, they just sweep the land. All right, so even if you look at Ukraine, like that was really remote territory way out there in the crop growing zones, which is now inch by inch through the Russian army coming through. So my whole thing has become, before I was here, I was like, I'm going to hold out. I don't care what happens. The tidal wave come. This is my last stand. I don't care anymore. I'm going to stop. This is it. But now I'm starting to pivot to, I need to be way more mobile. So everything I'm doing now is revamping all of my stuff to be able to get out of here at a moment's notice and take all the valuables with me, because I've seen nothing but the repeating chapter of history of, it starts with the food shortages, it starts with the economic crisis, the wars follow, and the wars go everywhere and devastate everything. You get out of the way or you die. There's no way to do it. They're going to come in your house and steal everything anyway, so you might as well try to get out there with your resources while you can. And that's what I noticed. Every epoch of history, whether it's 1400s, 1500s, 16, 17, 18, now, there's nowhere to run. Like even the Civil War, you go back there and you look, and even way remote down here in East Tennessee, like you think, damn, it takes you don't want to get lost in those mountains, man. You don't come out. You get lost up there. But every square inch was covered by troops, and even the smallest of little farm shacks with log cabins got burnt to the ground way back in the day, man. Like I've revamped the way I think about moving forward here in the repeating cycle of the same thing. The food, when it gets really expensive, causes everybody else to spend so much on food that they can't afford anything else. The rising rent prices, the rising insurance costs to keep your home, by the way. And then there's a downward spiral. And then at that point, then the people they can't hold it together. Because if you don't even have enough money to have food and house, at that point, your society has crumbled. And this is where we're dangerously close right now. Unless your sheriff says, no, you're not coming to take the house, they're still going to come and try to take your house, It's the bank on a computer screen many states away that's trying to confiscate your property.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Certainly, I'm right there with you. But, I mean, listen, I've had a backup plan, and now I got a backup plan to the backup.
Yeah, right. That's definitely. Everybody need to think about backup to the backup. And exit mobile. Mobile exit quickly. If you can't get all your stuff in a car in under an hour and get out of there, you're way too slow.
Now, on the cyber attack front, since the last time we talked, there was a major headline that broke mainstream media. Allegedly, Russia took down a New Mexico water plant. It was like last year you had Iran saying they took down one in Aliquippa, which is only like half hour from the Aliquippa, PA. So we got more of that happening. I remind everyone we have the Olympics this summer, and they're already talking about how they want to prevent terrorism there. It's in Paris this year. Paris is a big city, of course, with the BRICS nations, and then I'm sure we'll be blamed on. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that in terms of the cyber attacks, and again, being ready to live off grid here for a little bit, and then we'll conclude our last topic of bird flu here. But what do you make of the cyber attacks and getting ready for the shutdown?
Just don't even know what to believe anymore. As I was traveling around, another recollection came. I had this epiphany, I guess. Is everything is scripted between all nations that may appear as enemies, but it seems like everybody is doing the same thing with the COVID. Like all the nations are moving the same direction. All right, so if you're coming to an end of a cycle, and the elite or planetary rulers know that we're at the end of the cycle, and there's really nothing to salvage. I mean, nature's going to do what nature does. Then what would you do? You'd distract everybody, and is the cyber attack really from another nation, or is it us doing it to ourselves to appear that it's another nation to then pass more laws and control more? I get it. I really don't believe that what we're seeing on the stage in terms of they're bad, they're good, they're an enemy, they're a friend. I don't believe it any longer. I truly don't. The whole thing it is. That's why I don't believe it anymore. Because the same thing has happened in Asia. The same exact things happen in Europe. The same exact things happen in here. And they're all pointing the same fingers at all different people. But it's the same exact MO. That's what I got out of that.
Get everyone to hate one another. That's the main thing, right? Cause more dissension, more chaos, discord, and yeah, I mean that's the age-old debate. Is it our own country? Is it another country? I mean, we just know that what is probably going to happen. And I use the word probably. I mean, we're probably going to have a shutdown here, no matter who it's on, and you got to be ready for it. You got to be ready to live without electricity and to live off grid as best you can wherever you're at. But what about this whole bird flu talk? And again, this is one that, I mean, since we've been doing shows, I told you that I thought was going to be the one to lock us down indefinitely. But now it's like really picking up, like over the last few months. Now we're talking about on a regular basis. We're talking about how it's probable, how we're going to probably have some jump over to humans. It just hasn't, picked up speed. But they're saying that is more than a probable chance of happening now. My whole thing is, in terms of timeline, I don't see it really happening like this spring or summer, because I really do think they want the chaos to hit. And so I don't think they'll try to lock down everyone while they want to try to have pandemonium happen in the streets. I'm more inclined like September, October, right? I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I do think we're getting closer to that, though, now. What's your thoughts on bird flu in the milk now? One in 5 containers, FDA saying, stay away from that milk.
Oh, stay away from the milk. Didn't they want to take dairy off and out of your hands anyway? I mean, you look at these things. So walk back a couple steps with me, like, 10 years ago. They broadcast the moves. They wanted to shut down the cattle industry. They wanted to stop commercial flights for people like you and me. If we didn't have a private jet, we weren't entitled to fly. So this is all baked into the cake anyway. You could see where the programming is going, and then suddenly these things are starting to manifest, and we're out here scratching our head going, really, what's causing it? Well, that was the plan. That was the plan. Understand that first and foremost. Then you start to look at the causations of I'm going to call them just excuses to make the plan work more efficiently. Now, one thing I could see, though, with the whatever flu, bird flu, whatever it might be, is watch this. They're going to start to talk about interplanetary electromagnetic changes coming up somewhere around probably September. That in itself would be the excuse to allow something to mutate. The planetary magnetic field changed, the sun did, look at the outer planets. Once the outer planets start to glow more brightly, they're going to have to come up with an excuse for that, right? A lot of electrical disturbances on Earth, the storms are going to get worse, then we're going to watch our planets possibly glow brighter, and you're going to watch all kind of things happen. You thought biblical is a good description of what's coming right now. So then add it into the cake. Add the ultimate excuse there, Eric. Add the last excuse. Oh, the electromagnetic field changed. Sorry, we didn't tell you. We didn't know ourselves. It was a big old cycle. But because the electromagnetic changes, these viruses or whatever were able to mutate in a new magnetic field. And that's how it was. It wasn't a laboratory, man. It was a mutated magnetic field. The mutation came in a new magnetic field, although the magnetic field was only disturbed for a month. But look what popped out, a whole new disease, XYZ, ABC. We got 10 new diseases because the magnetic field was different. Now run with that. Then they can do anything they want from 25 forward, right?
Yeah, and not just the mutations, too. They're saying as a result of, quote-unquote, climate change with the permafrost, caps melting, ancient, old stuff that we haven't seen in, millennial that'll come back and get us.
I could describe that best as I heard it somebody when I was talking to them in England. There was a poppycock.
Yeah.
This is Mysteries in the Histories. Over a period of 6 weeks in 1994, the small town of Oakville, Washington was hit with a bizarre string of storms that rained weird gelatinous blobs all over the town. And then people started getting sick. This is the weird and still unsolved mystery of the Oakville blobs. It began raining the clear gelatinous goop on the 7th of August. No one knew where it came from or what it was. The blobs contained similar-looking white cells as humans. People in the town who had contact with the blobs began feeling sick and scared a few hours later. Residents in the small city reported that what fell from the sky was not water, but gooey, slimy, clear and translucent blobs the size of a grain of rice. Over the next 3 weeks, in an area measuring 20 square miles, there would be 5 more events of the terrifying ooze raining down on unsuspecting citizens. There were reports of people developing flu-like symptoms from contact or proximity to the blobs, even of animals dying, the very day of the raining blobs. So what was it? And was it making people sick? A sample of the Oakville blobs was sent to the Hazardous Material Unit at the Department of Ecology of Washington State. Once received microbiologist Mike McDowell found 2 species of bacteria in the Oakville blobs, stating one of these was known to infect the human digestive system. But scientist Mike Osweiler of the Washington State Department said they found a number of cells of various sizes and 2 types of bacteria in the blobs, but were unable to identify them. They did, however, note that the cells did not have nuclei. This was significant because it refuted previous claims that the blobs contained human-like white blood cells, which do have nuclei. So what were the Oakville blobs? One theory is that it was jellyfish or parts of jellyfish dispersed into rain clouds by bombing runs carried out by the Air Force. Another theory, fluid waste from an airplane toilet, but the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration pointed out that this would have been blue, not translucent. Still another theory is that of an example of panspermia, an event dropping the unknown cells down upon the Earth. Panspermia is the hypothesis that life exists throughout the universe, distributed by space dust, meteoroids, asteroids, comets, and maybe even clouds of raining blobs perhaps. What if it was fluid waste from a UFO or UAP toilet? Just think about that for a minute. Ever since the 14th century, there have been reports of a substance very similar to the blobs in Oakville being found elsewhere, called star jelly, astral jelly, or astromyxin, named after the legend that it falls from the sky during meteor showers. What if the blobs never rained in the first place, that they emerged from a more earthly plane? This would require overlooking the witness statements of those who saw the blobs fall. But it has been a theory. All the original uncollected blobs have long disappeared, and there are no known remaining samples of the Oakville blobs, including at the Washington Department of Health. They apparently have no records of ever receiving any, but allegedly. The Washington State Department took all known samples and somehow misplaced them. Inter alia, frog spawn, sodium polyacrylate crystals or algae have been the source of other blob events. However, there are many unexplained instances of the raining goop, including in 2013 when slime was found at the Ham Wall Nature Reserve in Somerset, England. Despite sending samples for DNA testing to the Natural History Museum, just like in Oakville, no conclusion was ever reached or explanation given. Raining blobs of Oakville is another one of the great mysteries in the histories. Sign up to our show notes email list and get access to longer episodes of Mysteries in the Histories just for signing up. Signing up for the show notes, you get behind-the-scenes thoughts and points we sometimes can't relay over social media platforms. Brought to you by ITM Trading. ITM Trading has spent the last 28-plus years developing a team of expert researchers and gold and silver analysts to make this possible. Simply put, we build strategies which are historically proven to protect your wealth and assets through any economic downturn. 866-834-1422. That's 866-834-1422.